Leandra. And so Deb and I will be passing back and forth a little bit today. And so, this is a bit of a guide of what we're going to be covering today. Deb, would you like to take it away?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Deb Kagan. I was the trail manager from 2017 to 2019 when we did the renovation of the trail and helped lead the development of the guide that we're going to be using as a basis for today's virtual hike. So everybody, when we first were thinking of doing this presentation, we still couldn't actually walk in the parks, and now we can, so yay. Although we can't walk in a group, so we're still gonna do this as a virtual presentation today. So everybody, hope you have had a chance to get out in the county parks and hopefully on the Lenape Trail. So let's talk a little bit about the history of the trail. Is there
yeah.
For this, who's doing slides here? There we go. So this trail, the first thing people ask about this trail is it based on paths that the Lenape people took? And no. It is something that was created by Al Kent, who's up there in the right part of your screen, a remarkable man who he worked for the Morris County Parks, and he decided he really wanted to help people have access and to celebrate the county parks in Essex County. And he started creating this trail in '76 and completed it in '79. And he did all of the blazing and maintained it for about 30 years by himself. And I think we have his daughter, Susan, here today. Susan, you here? I saw her name on the list, so we just want...
I'm here, can you hear me?
Yes, so I just want to do a big shout out to your father, Al. Without him, we would not have this trail at all. So he really was an amazing person. Thank him again for doing all the work. It's an unusual park, and it's particularly unusual, trail for the trail conference, because it's the only urban trail in New Jersey that the conference maintains. And about 70% is parks and 30 is streets. So the idea that Al had was really to string together through the trail a walk through most of the county parks, the large county parks, and the reservation, sort of in a string of pearls, if you think of it. And that's what it's based on. It actually follows a horseshoe shape, and at one end is Branch Brook Park. It goes up north, up through Mill Reservation, comes down through Eagle Rock, and ends in South Mountain. Around 2010, Steve Marano, we want to do a shout out to him, from Nutley, really took over working on this project, really revitalized it, and brought in, at that time, the Trail Conference was brought in to take over the maintenance of the park, as well as the Essex County took it on. So Essex County, partnering with the Trail Conference, took over maintaining it, making sure it was in good shape, making sure there were blazes and good signage along it. And in 2017, there was another revitalization movement. So the Partners for Health Foundation gave a grant to the Trail Conference to go through the whole trail, and we did an inventory of it, marked it where it needed upkeep, maintenance, new blazing, and then created a guide, which is now online. Everybody can go and see that at the Trail Conference website. And there's a 45-page guide that does history for all of the parks. There are 18 parks, mainly county and some municipal, and it goes through 11 of the towns. So there are maps done in 7 different sections, so it's really easy to download them. with points of interest for each section. And you can find all that. It's all free. It's online. You can download it to use it for your hiking. Just very briefly, there's a few major trails that also connect through Essex County with the Lenape Trail. The West Essex Trail is a 3-mile trail that's up near Cedar Grove at the very top of the trail. The Morris Canal Greenway, which is a major project that goes for, it's proposed to go for 111 miles throughout New Jersey. And I believe Rich Rockwell is online. Rich, you there?
Yes, I am.
Yes, who is a major force behind the Morris Canal. And if we have time later, he can tell you more about that. It intersects with the Lenape Trail around Clark's Park, and we'll just mention that when we go through the maps. And the Liberty Water Gap. At the same time that Al was creating the Lenape Trail, there was also an effort to create the Liberty Water Gap Trail. And that's a really extensive trail that's supposed to go from 2 Liberty historic points. One, the Liberty State Park, all the way across New Jersey to the Delaware Water Gap. And those long distance through trails often use large sections of other existing trails. So a big section of the Liberty Water Gap Trail would be the Lenape Trail, where it crosses and then goes off. It's still in construction and development. There's several counties where there's big spaces of it that haven't been completed, but these are 3 of the big trails that sort of go through Essex. Sorry, my allergies are getting to me. Okay, we're done with that slide. And Dave's going to talk about the Lenape people and the history.
Great, thanks, Deb. And I didn't introduce myself before, so my name is Dave DeShazer, and I am the current trail chair, so maintaining sections myself and supervising and working with other maintainers, as well as organizing kind of a wandering trail crew for different bits and pieces along the trail where we need work. And really just thank you to all the other maintainers, as well as everybody who comes out for all of the crew days. I'm hoping that we'll be able to be on the trail with you again later this summer. As Deb mentioned at the top, that the trail is not directly associated, but it was named in honor of the Lenape Peoples. They're also known as the Lenni Lenape and the Delaware tribes. They were the original inhabitants of New Jersey, as well as large parts of New York and Manhattan and Long Island, and down into and across into Pennsylvania as well. The Lenape were traditionally a matrilineal as well as matrilocal peoples, so that the families, instead of would move into the mother's line after marriage, and they are were on the receiving end, unfortunately, of the infamous Manhattan Purchase in 1626, and so were one of the while they were one of the first tribes that were contacted in this region. They were also one of the first that were displaced, and so over a couple of centuries really were pushed farther west until today. They are mostly in several groups in the Western United States and Ontario, as well as a couple of groups that are still within New Jersey that are recognized by the state of New Jersey, but there's a little bit of controversy because not federally, and so one of which close to the Trail Conference in Ramapo. They were also the first tribe to sign a treaty with the United States directly after the Revolutionary War, and in their move and migrations out west, they were widely known as trappers and hunters and guides throughout the western states. There is just an immense history and so many rich sources out there, and so I would encourage anybody who's interested to either read more on the Delaware Nation website or the Lenape Lifeways, or continue searching beyond as well. So there we go. And so for the trail, then it's a wide range of natural habitats that we do go through, but we're along the Watchung Mountains. And so these are low ridges of volcanic basalt that were formed approximately 200 million years ago. It also follows, sorry, have a typo there, but also follows and crosses many local streams and waterways, and so you'll end up in some wetlands as well. And of course, in the region that we're in, then we're mostly deciduous forests, and you'll see potentially see a lot of deer and raccoon and a few foxes, especially where I am. And there's a lot of sites along the trail. They're just excellent for any bird watchers. And beyond the manicured, or I'm sorry, beyond the more natural habitats that you'll find along the trail, there's also some really beautiful parks and manicured gardens, such as the Presby Iris Gardens. And of course, in this day and age, we can't avoid it, but we'll also have to deal with a lot of invasive species as well, such as bitterroot, tree of heaven, multiflora rose, and many others. One of the other outreaches and efforts from the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference is to help map and to control invasive species, and so you can learn more about that effort at the website listed below. And so we're just at the beginning, but is there any questions that anybody has at this point?
I'm not seeing any, so I think you're
great.
Good.
Well, we'll keep on going then. So the Essex County Parks, kind of changing gears now directly to the trail. So the Essex County Parks is the oldest county park system in the United States, and it was formed in 1895. The county engaged the Olmsted Brothers firms, which were the children and the successor firm of the famous Frederick Olmsted, who designed Central Park, among many other things, the Chicago World's Fair, just a huge contribution, and really made landscape architecture what it is today. So within the Essex County Park system, we can all enjoy over 6,000 acres of neighborhoods and playgrounds, and then going all the way up to fantastic undeveloped reservations, or mostly undeveloped reservations, like South Mountain and Mills Reservation. Within this, then there are 23 parks, but there's also, and the reservations I just mentioned, as well as some other sites like the Turtleback Zoo and the Essex County Environmental Center, which hosts just a fantastic number of activities. There's annual events like the Cherry Blossom Festival, which unfortunately we all missed this year. Lots of summer concert series, and hopefully we'll be able to go outside for some fireworks. And there's more information at the Essex County website as well. So maintaining the trail. As Deb mentioned, the Trail Conference adopted the trail in 2010, and the maintenance of the trail is largely divided into trail maintainers who are individually responsible, or sometimes in pairs, responsible for individual sections of the trail, focusing on the parks and the reservations. And then we also have the Lenape Trail Crew, which meets approximately monthly during the summer to tackle larger projects, such as kind of in the middle panel here, dealing with some flooding and installing a culvert to mitigate some flooding that was persistent in the Eagle Rock Reservation, as well as installing bridges and such, like the one here. And just to embarrass people a little bit, because Deb started, so I'll continue. You can see in the bottom panel, you can see Sue on the right, and Rich in the suspenders. And then I'll also point out that my daughters happen to be among the youngest trail crew members, and so that's my older daughter Arden on the left-hand side there. And in the little middle panel, if you look up, the owner of the pink boots is my younger daughter Hadley. And so it's just kind of a family affair, and we all have a lot of fun out there. And actually, that's one of the things we're looking forward to this upcoming weekend as well. Beyond the maintainers and the trail crew, there's a huge number of conservancies along the trail that are really active and contribute so much. And there's also a number of hiking and running clubs and other groups that are very active and will at times supply people power for activities, as well as just giving us great heads up on when there are issues. And so I would encourage anybody who is along the trail and notices something that maybe just isn't right to email the trail conference about what they saw and where and what needs to be done. And then that will help us decide on where we should be directing our efforts next. And so some of the activities that we do along the trail conference, you can see listed here. And for the sake of time, we'll keep on going. And the trail is continuing to evolve. And so some of the changes and some of the recent additions in the past several years are the just linchpin connector to South Mountain, which was built by the South Mountain Conservancy, making these just great bog bridges. They bring us nicely through some wetlands into the South Mountain Reservation. Approximately 2 years ago, we also rerouted the trail from the West Essex Trail into the Hilltop Reservation. Here is the native grasslands meadow, which is at the top of the hilltop. And this was actually a picture from one of our first hikes in our first summer in New Jersey. So the little girl there is quite a bit bigger now. And then also just the beautiful and historic Presby Iris Gardens. And coming very soon is going to be an extended section along the Morris Canal Greenway, where we're redirecting from some neighborhood streets to a section that Rich Rockwell has championed opening up. So really excited to see that coming soon. And so hiking the Lenape Trail to find your way, there's great maps that are available on the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, and those were linked earlier. The Avenza app is also an excellent app that does allow you to download all of the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference maps. For the Lenape Trail specifically, you should be looking for yellow blazes. And if you're not familiar with blazes, then these are approximately 2 inches by 3 inches. All will be in a yellow color throughout the length of the trail. And then for a left-hand turn, the top blaze will be to the left. For a right-hand turn, the top blaze will be to the right. And then a single blaze just means you're exactly where you need to be and keep on going. For basic kit for hiking then is really just a good sturdy pair of boots or shoes. Layers, as always, for hiking is great, so you can add or take away as you need. First aid kit, a little bit of water and food, and as we're getting into the summer, of course, sunscreen and insect repellent. We also need to recognize, and especially as we're coming up on Memorial Day weekend, when there's a lot of people who are going to be wanting to get out to the trail, that this is a little bit of a different time now than we've really encountered before. So I want everybody to kind of be as careful and safe as you can. The Trail Conference has put together a fantastic set of pointers in the new hiking how-tos. which really boil down to staying local. So trying to stay within your community as much as possible. Stay flexible as well. So recognize that we do need to maintain social distance even when we're heading out to the outdoors. And so please think about maybe a backup option and a backup to your backup option. So in case so in case a lot of other people had the same great idea you did of a specific favorite hike, then you can perhaps still enjoy the outdoors, but just someplace where you can be a little bit more secluded. Also try to stay small. So right now, still just within your family, please. Be safe. So make sure that you are having face coverings if there's for areas that might be a little bit more crowded, like at trailheads and parking lots and such. And just always please be smart and use your best judgment throughout so that we can all stay healthy and get through this together. And now we can take a small break. If there's any questions, we'll do our best to answer them.
We do have one question, and it is, are you able to share where specifically the Morris Canal Greenway will be integrated into the Lenape Trail?
Yes, and actually that's on a map in a little bit farther along, so we'll make sure to point that out, but it's going to be very close to the Bloomfield Middle School by Clark's Pond, and I forget there's a bridge that's crossing a roadway there, and I'm forgetting that particular bridge. I don't know if Rich wants to jump on real quick because I know he knows.
The Pilch Street footbridge that crosses the Garden State Parkway and goes behind Demarest School to Besida Street and to American Way. Those are parallel to sort of near Broughton. And then we'll go up Besida Street to the footbridge that goes to Clark's Pond.
Excellent. Thank you, Rich.
Sure.
Great. So Joan has raised her hand. So Joan, I am unmuting you and you can go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. I appreciate this whole event tonight. So always have wanted to do this trail, but not quite sure if I live in Montclair, where do you start?
Oh, so many good places. So you can section hike, or you can you can either go into Newark and at the kind of southeastern tip of Branch Brook Park, there's some parking there, and then go there, or you can go down into Milburn, and then there's a parking lot close to the library in Milburn that you can go there as well. But there's through Brookdale, through Presby Garden, Eagle Crest. There's a lot of great places to launch off in Montclair as well.
Great. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
So we do have one more question. It says, and I don't know if you'll know this, but do the reservations ever do events like education, performances, etc., open to those not in the tribe?
I do not know that. Having having lived in a few areas with different tribes, those tribes were were interested in education and outreach as well, and so I would hope so. But I would perhaps ask that you do follow the links to perhaps either the Delaware or the Ramapo Lenape people or Lenape Lifeways.
The Essex County Environmental Center also does educational programs focused on the Lenape, and they are also another resource you could ask them as well. They're in Rosedale. It's the Essex County Environmental Center. Roseland, sorry.
Yep. Those are all the questions for right now.
Excellent, thank you. And so Deb, I will hand it over to you.
Okay. So we're going to take you through the trail. As we said, there are 18 parks, which is a lot. So we're just going to focus some of the history on some of the larger parks and reservations, but we will follow the trail as we go through. So we're starting, and the map sections in the official guide start with Branch Brook. Just as a sidebar, there was originally part of the trail went through Newark, and there has been discussion about trying to have a third renovation section for the trail that would again take it through Newark. But right now it starts at Branch Brook in Newark, not on the river. And Branch Brook is actually the first park that, the first county park in the country, as well as in the Essex County park system. It's 4 miles long, as you can see, and it's best known, probably everybody knows it, for the Cherry Blossom Festival. It has over 5,000 different cherry trees. It's the largest collection of cherry trees actually in the country. Everybody thinks it's DC, but it's not. It's Branch Brook Park. And of course, here the festival was in April, which was at the height of COVID, so they didn't have it. But I believe the county did a virtual tour, so you could go on the county site if you go to Branch Brook Cherry Blossom Festival, and you can see actually a virtual tour of it from this year. So the park was started in about 1898, and it was designed by the Olmsted brothers. So most of the county parks in Essex County were designed by Olmsted. Olmsted's brothers, the father, Frederick, was the person who designed Central Park, and the approach and philosophy of the Olmsted brothers was very much to make you feel as though you were in a natural environment. They had a very strong philosophy that nature was restorative and inspired people, and so a lot of the beautiful parks we have in Essex County are designed from their philosophy. So as we go up, at the very bottom is the Cathedral of Basilia of the Sacred Heart, which is the seat of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Newark. And that took 50 years to build, and it started around the turn of the century. As we go up along the trail, you'll see the Branch Brook Lake. So Branch Brook was a tributary of the first river, and they drained a lot of the ponds along there for quarrying at one point. And there's something called brownstone that was quarried out of construction in the park and in the area. So a lot of those big brownstone bridges that you see in the park and different housing were actually quarried from Branch Brook. Probably the most famous area and statues in the park are the lions, the Prudential lions, which were, there's 2 beautiful large sculptures of lion's head. They were created by a sculptor, famous sculptor at the time, Carl Bitter, around 1892. And they were at Prudential's Newark headquarters until '59, and they were moved over to the park. In that area is also the Prudential Concert Grove, so there are summer concerts there and fireworks and hopefully soon other events from the summer, and there's an amphitheater as well. And at the very top is the Cherry Blossom Welcome Center. So once you go back there, they have a lot more information about the cherry trees and the history of them that are planted. And then that takes us up through Belleville Park, which is about a 30-acre park at the very top. It goes along the second river and has beautiful trees along the river and big open spaces on the park. Okay, we're gonna go on. So we come into Nutley, and there's two parks, Booth Park and Yanticaw Park in Nutley. Both of them are municipal parks, and they run along the Third River area right there, as you can see. And there's quite a lot of history in this area of Nutley. The Vreeland Homestead is in the park, and that was built in 1751. There's actually a plaque on it. There's some controversy. Evidently, it's not correct, but it was built by someone during the Revolutionary War period, and is still there. It's now the Women's Club of Nutley purchased the house, I think. Oh, and they turned it over to the Nutley Historic Society after that. There's the Nutley Museum and the enclosure. So nearby is the top of your screen on the right. You can see it says the Enclosure Historic District. I don't have a pointer, so sorry. The Enclosure Historic District. So this is a really interesting piece of Nutley and Nutley history that's around here. It was bought up actually in 1873 by a developer named James Hay. And he saw it as a place to bring artists from New York City and create an artist community there. And there were a lot of the painters that were well known throughout New York and New Jersey, as well as writers. And in fact, Annie Oakley, who was doing a publication, lived there. And the Nutley Museum, which is along the path of the Lenape Trail, actually has guns from Annie Oakley. It's a cute little museum along that site. Okay. So Clark's Pond, you've heard us talk just a minute ago. Clark's Pond is this lovely little open space natural area in Nutley. It has a lot of wildlife in it. I've seen great blue herons there. There's lots of foxes, egrets. Of course, deer come from there. And the Morris Canal Greenway intersects, as Rich was talking about, right at this point. So we will now reroute it so you'll be able to walk along part of the canal. And of course, the canal goes for many, many miles in both directions from there. And there's fishing there. It's really a lovely little spot in the middle of Nutley.
Yep. And so just to jump in briefly, Deb, so it would, the proposed reroute is going to, instead of jogging up Broughton Avenue, or they'll just go straight down Beseda Street and then follow the Morris Canal Greenway up from there. So it's a nice little spot. And one point that I forgot to mention previously, if you'll forgive me, was that for the parks that are part of the Essex County Park System, then we were showing kind of the medallion there versus the others, which are township parks. Thank you, Deb.
Right. Sure. So Clark's Pond is part of the municipal parks. Okay. There we go. So we come out of Clark's Pond, we go up Watchung Ave and cross over Watchung Ave into Brookdale Park, which is what I call my park because I live a block away from Brookdale Park and I'm usually there every day. The Lenape Trail runs from the drive-in from Watchung Ave up and then across the top of the park and out at Bellevue. So Brookdale is also an Olmsted designed park. It's one of the largest parks in Essex County and actually one of the most visited. So if you've been there recently, there's a lot of people there. So just a heads up, if you go there, do remember social distancing, and the county is now requiring masks in Brookdale Park. So just a heads up on that when you go. There's still plenty of space to get off paths if it gets too crowded. So I still would encourage people to go and not be afraid of that. Brookdale has some great history to it as well. There's evidence that the Lenape had a gathering place there. At some point around the 17th century, the Dutch settlers transformed the area, which was then called Stonehouse Plains, into farming and grazing. And around the 1800s, it started to build up, received its own post office, which was called Brookdale. And in 1928, the land was purchased for the park. So part of Brookdale Park also was developed in the Depression by the WPA, or the Workers' Progress Administration. So it's another example of a park that was put together by some of that work that was done during the Depression, during the Roosevelt era. The Rose Garden is probably the most famous or well-known garden part of it. The Brookdale Rose Garden, and it has its own society that takes care of it, and the master gardeners work on the Rose Garden. It was started in about 1959, and it now includes 1,500 rose bushes with nearly 100 different varieties in 29 separate beds. It's a beautiful garden on top of the hill, and I really encourage everybody to take a look at that. There's also a new garden. There's a pollinator garden that's just been developed, as well as they just, the Northeast Earth Coalition just did some volunteer work uncovering a stream in Brookdale and encouraging natural plants around the area. And they're both right along the trail. So, and there's a cherry lawn in Brookdale as well. Okay, let's move along. So you're coming out of Brookdale, going down a street where there's a beautiful creek towards Yanticaw Brook Park, which is a beautiful little park with a pond in the middle. You can see that photo from the fall. It has a water fountain, attracts a lot of waterfowl. It's a beautiful little park. It is a municipal park in Montclair. And then we go up through another small park with some sports fields on it, tourist park, a little uphill. And then as we're heading up to Alexander, you'll see sort of above Alexander Ave on the right is the Alonso Bonsall Wildlife Preserve. It's not actually on the trail, it's just a couple of blocks away, but it is a beautiful preserve. And it is preserved as a wildlife preserve, so there are not asphalt paths or anything in it, but it is open to the public, and you can access it just a couple streets away from where the trail goes up. Okay. Presby. So Presby Memorial Iris Gardens is a new addition to the Lenape Trail. We rerouted the trail to go through the gardens in the last couple of years. The gardens, as you can see, was founded in 1927 in honor of Frank Presby. And he was a founder of our Montclair Art Museum, as well as the American Iris Society. And they preserved this land and planted irises, some of which some of the bulbs actually date back to the 1500s, and the beds are marked by periods of time. So there's new ones with a lot of hybrids and some really old historic gardens. There's a house that's also part of the gardens, and they also do events. They do a lot of summer events, movie showings. There have been beautiful Japanese drum concerts I've gone to there. It's across from Mountainside Park, which is where the pool and tennis courts are. So the Iris Gardens have over 10,000 individual plants. They produce 100,000 blooms. There are 26 beds, and there's everything from all types of Suburia, Siberian, Japanese, Louisiana irises, And it's sometimes called the rainbow on the hill because of the way it's done in a triangular configuration. It's very beautiful, particularly around this time of year. If you're gonna go to one spot for flowers right at this moment, go to the Iris Gardens. Okay. So we have a
That's great. So I don't.
questions.
There was one question that came through, and it looks like another attendee answered it, but we'll just confirm. Is the statue of Althea Gibson in Branch Brook? And someone said yes.
Good. I'm glad they answered it.
Okay. Excellent.
This-
Otherwise, I am not seeing.
these parks. I don't have all of it, so I appreciate anybody out there who can answer some of these. And I know Deb Ellis, I think, is joining us and knows quite a bit about Brookdale too. So if I miss something important or please pitch in. Because I've gone on a tour of Brookdale with Deb and she did a great job. So I'm hoping she'll do that again in the near future. Any other questions?
So there is one question just about trail markers near Towers Park.
Yeah.
And just a desire to have a few more there, and if there's any reasons for the way it is blazed.
Yes, there's some blazes missing. And Dave, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but as you go into the park and as you're supposed to go left out into the street towards Alexander, there's I believe there was a pole there that had a marker or a tree on it that was taken down, and we need to redo that. But thanks for reminding us.
No, that's fantastic, actually. And so that's something that I can just reach out to the maintainer for that section and ask that they make sure that that is clearly marked as it's going into the park. I was not aware of that before, so I really appreciate it. I will kind of make a comment that on blazing, occasionally we get comments about how the people wish that there was more blazes along streets and in towns. We have to be careful and considerate of that because within the parks we have right of way as the trail conference, but really along the streets and towns, it's we don't have that sort of permission, and so we do have to respect each township, and so it ends up being a little bit more work to first kind of get the heads up and allow us to go through. And there's a few things where we just need to. So for instance, telephone poles, I've been told a couple of times now that they'll never get mad, but they'll never give me permission to put a blaze on a telephone pole as well. So, but within parks, along streets, try to make sure that have already reached out to some of the public works folks, and so they know what we're doing, and that we're doing our best to respect the trail conference or to do a really good job representing the trail conference as we go out. So always appreciate the feedback, but we also take a mindset of less is more when it comes to blazing some of the streets.
Yeah, Dave, I know where the person's talking about for tours. I can show you on the map.
Excellent. Thanks, Deb.
So we do have a question from Nancy. Nancy, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Sorry, my dog is barking, of course, at the time that I unmute my microphone. I was just curious if I know it's not on the trail, but the Alonzo Wildlife Preserve, is there a sign someplace? Because I have no idea how to get in there. So I'd be very interested. I've heard about it and I would like to go explore it, but I have no idea how to get into it.
Yeah, I don't know if you can pull back the map. There is this. Yeah. So, do you see Riverview Drive there on the map, Nancy? Nancy, you there?
Yeah, sorry, I muted myself again. Can you hear me now? Okay, because of the dog. Yes,
So,
I see
the trail, yeah, The trail takes a left on Alexander Ave. You
Yes.
see, and that's coming out of that side street, coming out of Tours Park, where the blazing is a little off. So instead of going left, if you go straight and go to the next street, which is Riverview Drive,
Okay.
there
Be able to continue right in there.
yeah, there's a sign on that street. It's very set back from the street. They do not like to advertise it a lot. They're very intent on keeping it as a wildlife preserve. And so while people are allowed in, and it's not widely publicized.
Right. Okay.
There is a sign there. You just, it's between two houses. You just need, there's a path, and you just need to look at it.
Okay.
In that section on Riverview Drive.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then Joan has a question as well. I'm trying to unmute you, but it's not letting me. So if you want to unmute yourself. Joan. Okay, well, we'll move on to, there is a question in the chat about who is the best person to contact if we see trees down or spots that can use some additional markers. And I can actually let you know that if you go on the Trail Conference website and go to the Contact Us page, there is specifically an option on there to report trail problems. And when we receive them, we then go ahead and forward those to the volunteer leaders in the applicable areas. So we would be forwarding that to David to let him know. That's probably the easiest way to get in touch if you see an issue.
This is not working on your cell phone?
Oh, now I think that was Joan unmuting herself. No.
And I'll just, we're aware of several down trees along the trail right now. One of the challenges with social distancing is that for Sawyer crews, so chainsaw crews, then it's a crew, it's more than one person. And so that's a piece of work that right now we're pausing. So please understand and really appreciate your patience. It's also one of the most fun things for doing for trail maintaining. So we'll get there.
Awesome. There are like a couple other questions, but I also know you guys still have parts of the presentation. So if you guys want to go ahead and keep going, and I'll take note of questions for the next round.
That's great. Thank you, Kendra.
Thanks.
So going forward up the hill from the Presby Gardens, where you get a really nice overlook into New York City, is just the fantastic Mills Reservation. And so this bridges Montclair and Cedar Grove. I have to stop myself from saying this is one of my favorite parts of the trail, because I have many favorite parts of the trail. And so this is a protected forest area along First Washington Mountain that was donated to Essex County by the Mills family in 1954, with the requirement that there are no permanent improvements onto the trail. And so that means that it will be maintained as a forest and for public use forever. Which is just fantastic. There's a couple of really nice overlooks in that area, and then Quarry Point is a very dramatic cliff, just looking down. So also be careful there, but it's just fantastic. And then just up the road on Normal Avenue is Montclair State University. And then Cedar Grove Reservoir is not officially a park, but it's actually, it was recently purchased actually by the town of Cedar Grove from, honestly, I'm forgetting if it's from Newark or from the county, but to preserve that land as open space and for recreation. And so it's great there. There's not being county land, then there is some mountain biking trails on there. And then this is an area where we've done a couple of bridge repairs and replacements in the past couple of years. And then this and Cedar Grove, the Cedar Grove Reservoir, which actually is the water source for Newark, is just a beautiful body of water. And then the trees just change beautiful colors in the fall. This path used to be part of my daily commute. And so I love seeing the reservoir, and I love seeing the trees changing color on a daily basis. And then the trail then brings us further into into Cedar Grove and intersects the West Essex Trail there, and leads us into the Cedar Grove Community Park, which is, as the name implies, a county park, or I mean a community park. And then the Cedar Grove Park is a Essex County park. And the community park is bordered by then the West Essex Trail as well as the Peckman River. There's a lot of great playgrounds and community recreation equipment there. And then Cedar Grove Park is a newer, more manicured park that just has some great open spaces as well as some trails on the side. And the picture below is, you can see from the Cedar Grove Park looking up into a playground which is right by the Toole Community Center. And oh, I forgot to mention that in the Cedar Grove Community Park as well is also Cedar Grove's community pool. In both, there's bocce courts and great places for picnic areas as well, and well worth a visit. Crossing Fairview Avenue and going up the hill further we're in Hilltop Reservation. And just, this is one of the newest additions to the trail, and it really is just one of my favorite parts of the trail. It's a nice, long, linear reservation that has a lot of history behind it. As well as actually Cedar Grove Park were part of hospital complexes in the 19th century for tuberculosis, and the grassland meadowland, which has been replanted as native grasses, was previously home to the Essex Mountain Sanatorium, and was also, there were both a boys' home and then very briefly a girls' home at the site as well. It's really interesting hiking through, just because you'll be in this area that is lush and green, and then occasionally you'll have a reminder that this once was a developed site, and you'll see a manhole cover in the middle of a trail because of the infrastructure that used to be here. And I think we all have to give some thanks to the community members who, starting in the 1990s, really fought to protect and preserve this land. Also in the Hilltop Reservation is Prisoner's Pond, which has a lot of history, as this used to be one of the site of penitentiary there. And then there's been just a tremendous effort by the Hilltop Conservancy in recent years to beat back some of the invasive plants. And so there's a 5-acre area around Prisoner's Pond right now where the Conservancy is clearing an acre every year and then replanting that acre in native trees and plants. And that's just a fantastic endeavor. And then the trail leads us out of Hilltop Reservation towards the Verona Community Center, and there's some buildings there, but there's also a series of sports fields and then a just great multi-day or fireworks celebration around 4th of July. From the Hilltop Reservation, we make our way down Bloomfield Avenue in Verona to Verona Park. As you've perhaps gotten a little bit tired of hearing, this was a park that was designed by the Olmsted brothers and part of the build out of the Essex County system. The core of the park is Verona Lake, which was formed by damming the Peckman River. And originally, the dams were working dams as part of a grist mill, but then were expanded to make just the the gorgeous lake. And then it's interesting because there's a little island that sometimes is referred to Goose Island because a lot of geese like to nest there, and that was actually originally there because a right-of-way had to be maintained for a railroad, and that was put there to allow a bridge to be built across, but that bridge never surfaced. Within the park, there's a lot of recreation available with a boathouse and paddle boat rentals. There's exercise stations positioned around the park. There's a beautiful children's garden, as well as tennis courts, and then it's right next door to some of Verona's kind of restaurants and shopping right along Bloomfield Avenue. And then throughout the spring and summer and fall, there are art festivals and concerts and a lot available in Verona Park. Leaving Verona Park and going into the Park Avenue section of Verona, we make our way into Eagle Rock Reservation, and this is another just gorgeous, huge reservation in Essex County, with miles and miles of trail throughout, as well as some observation posts that you can enjoy within the park. This Eagle Rock was in fact one of the first targets of the Essex County Parks Commission when it was formed in 1895, and there are some extremely historic sites there, including the Highland Pavilion and now also the 9/11 Memorial, which features striking views into New York City. This was perhaps apocryphal, but Deb can correct me on this. There's also reports and statements that this is where Washington's Continental Army also used as an outpost to observe British troops during the Revolutionary War. And so,
Correct.
like much along the trail, there's history that goes back to and before the founding of our nation. Oh, and one other, there are some picnic areas along the trail, but perhaps an interesting attraction for Essex, for Eagle Rock Reservation, is also that west on Prospect is a Whole Foods, and so if you're thinking about through hiking the Lenape Trail, that's a frequent stop for through hikers to stop, get some food, have some lunch, and pick up supplies for the rest of your trek. So it's I have to smile every time I see somebody hiking along the trail with the Whole Foods bag, because I know exactly what they're doing and where they've been and where they're going to. So leaving Eagle Rock, we have we come to a couple of smaller community parks. First, Deegan, which has a nice pond right next to the West Orange High School, and a playground there. And it's just a really serene neighborhood park. And then a little bit further down the road, and please be careful here because this is Pleasant Valley Way and relatively, well, quite busy, is then O'Connor Park. And O'Connor Park is just another beautiful smaller neighborhood park with some sports fields and recreation facilities in West Orange. And have to thank Sue for being the maintainer for the past several years on O'Connor. And then also point out that from O'Connor is where you can access the Liberty Water Gap Trail. And then from O'Connor, we come to the South Mountain Connector. And this is just such a fantastic link for the trail conference. Maybe it's not officially a park, but it's just beautiful and secluded and with the bog bridges that the South Mountain Conservancy built in 2017, then it really provides some fantastic access to the area, and also very low impact without having to do a lot of work to the tread of the trail itself. One of the points that I will say is that this might be, and I might ruin it by saying this, but this might be a great place to get out and have a safe, secluded hike. I've never seen anybody else except trail crew members out there when I've visited this section, and so just I'm always kind of amazed. I'm always jealous of the people who live along the trail here. And finally, last but certainly not least, is the South Mountain Reservation. The South Mountain Reservation is by far the largest reservation in the Essex County Park System, with over 50 miles of trails, featuring just fantastic vistas and waterfalls and all sorts of points of interest along the trail, including sculpture gardens and a dog park and quarry overlooks. Being a father of young daughters, one of our favorites is at the southern tip of the trail, of the ferry trail, where there's all sorts of ferry houses, and it's kind of fun to go and just enjoy a short hike there. The Rahway River flows through the South Mountain Reservation, and during the settlement of this area, that was also an engine of the local economy, where dams along it powered multiple sawmills, and one of those dams, the Diamond Paper Mill Dam, kind of gave its name and its location to what is now the Paper Mill Playhouse, and is another great attraction along the trail. And so I hope that be it at the end of a through hike, or just starting a hike, or just kind of a day out, you are able to go and enjoy the South Mountain Reservation, and as well as all of the Lenape Trail. And so, just finishing up, would like to invite all of you who are interested to reach out to the Trail Conference and perhaps become volunteers as well. And would also like to thank all of the maintainers, all of the volunteers, all of the conservancies and townships, and our partners in the Essex County Parks for everything they do. And then share also a few additional links where you can learn more about the trail and more about some of the parks along the trail. If there's any final questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
So you do have a question. I'm going to try and unmute, and I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Marika, is that correct? Oops. All right, you are unmuted.
Yeah, that's how you say it.
Okay.
Question for you. Sorry, you guys probably aren't going to like it, but public transportation from New York City, because I am one of those people. Do you know of anywhere where I can get off to hike any of these, especially the Montclair Art Museum, like any location that you know of, or what sort of bus lines I should be researching for their stops?
I go the opposite direction. I commute into New York when I can. So yes, there's in Montclair, there's the Mountain View station. That's a great one. I think it's actually even on. That's right close to Presby Gardens, and so Presby Garden would then bring you up into Hills. Then there are bus lines through most of New Jersey. There's another train line, I forget exactly which one, that goes into Millburn and Maplewood as well, that would serve you well. And then I believe from Newark Penn Station into Verona and Hilltop, then I think that's the 27 New Jersey Transit line.
Okay. Any bus lines particular?
Yeah, so 27 is the New Jersey Transit line for the bus.
Okay.
The 27 route.
There are 6 train stops in Montclair, So there's ones that go closer to Brookdale.
Okay.
There's the Montclair Heights one, which is up near Presby at the other end. So there's 6 train stops all the way along on the Booton line out of New York. There's the Milburn train station, which is a big train station for South Mountain. There's also light rail that goes along the western side of Branch Brook Park. So you can get easily from New York and from Newark on the light rail and get into Branch Brook in that way too.
Okay, thank you so much.
And there are lots of comments in the chat box in response to your question. So if you want to open that up and copy and paste all of that before you lose it, it looks like there's lots of great information. So
There's also
And
there's some train station markings on the maps that are in the official guide.
Okay, great.
Exactly where the station is along the line.
Is this trail map, are they included in any of the maps from the New York, New Jersey trail, like the whole collection? Because I have the whole collection.
It's a
Yes.
separate map. No, it's a separate map.
Oh, it is. Oh, is it?
Okay.
Okay.
That's a separate map. But the maps we created for the guide can be downloaded in sections,
Mhm.
and they're free and they're online in the PDF.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And they are included in the trail guide as well, which is the top link right here.
and in the follow-up email we send out to everybody, we'll make sure to link the guide.
Awesome. Thanks, Kendra.
Yes, and so there is a question for Rich. Is the Morris Canal Greenway marked with blazes, and how much of the 111 miles are completed? Same with the Liberty Gap Trail. Oh, it looks like Rich may have answered that in the chat, but Rich, if you want to unmute yourself and just say what you typed up. Okay. He can't unmute himself, but there is an app for the Morris Canal map across the state, and then he wrote a much longer response to the question in the chat box. All right. Does anybody else have questions? I don't see any other raised hands or other questions. All right. Well, if that's not the case, then we're going to go ahead and, like I said, we will send up a follow-up email with the PDF to the guide, a recording of this presentation, and then also, if you want to become a volunteer and support the trail yourself, all you have to do is respond to that email, and we will go ahead and put you in touch with David. So huge thank you to both Deb and David. We really appreciate you doing this presentation. So.
Our pleasure.
Thank
Excellent.
you, everybody, for
Thank
joining
you.
as well.
On the trail.
Yeah. Have a good one, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you all. Be safe.